Everyone, I'm the Canadian lad, and today's video is about something that happened during the final battle of Avengers Endgame. A year into this movie and we're still finding out new details almost every other week. Just goes to show how jam-packed Avengers Endgame was. So without any further ado, let me jump straight to the point. On your screen you can see two pictures of two different moments that took place in the final battle. One is when Captain Marvel tried her best to prevent Thanos from snapping, and the other is where Tony Stark lunges for the gauntlet in Thanos' hand. What do you think is common between these two pictures? Focus on the gauntlet and you'll see that it's not glowing, because the energy flowing between the Infinity Stones and Thanos is being interrupted in both scenarios. Just before Professor Hulk snapped, we can see how the Nano Gauntlet was surging with full energy from all the Infinity Stones. This is the one major difference between Tony's Nano Gauntlet and E3's Infinity Gauntlet. If we go back to the moment when Thanos acquired all 6 Infinity Stones in Infinity War, there we see the surge only lasted for a few seconds, but in case of the Nano Gauntlet, the surge doesn't stop. Once you put on the gauntlet and you close your fist, the gauntlet begins to surge with incredible amount of energy. This mostly happened because E3 made his Infinity Gauntlet with substance that isn't available on Earth, which is Uru metal, whereas Tony used his nanotech to create the Nano Gauntlet, so automatically it has lesser durability than Uru metal. In summary, the Nano Gauntlet couldn't contain the energy surging from the stones while the Infinity Gauntlet could, but nonetheless Tony did a remarkable job trying to create a device that harnesses the power of all 6 Infinity Stones. Anyway, so why am I telling you all this? It's because what I'm about to tell you, for that you must know the difference between these two gauntlets. And now that you know the major difference, why do you think the Nano Gauntlet stopped glowing when Captain Marvel was trying to hold it off? Thanos was still wearing it and it should have been surging energy, but it didn't. Let me tell you why, and for that we have to rewind to this scene when Captain Marvel absolutely destroyed Thanos' ship with rather ease. The reason she could do this is because when she was arriving, Thanos' ship was blasting her relentlessly, and that's how she absorbed all the energy from those blasts and unleashed it upon Thanos' ship. This is one of the major abilities of Captain Marvel. She is more powerful when she fights more powerful beings, because her source of power is basically absorbing the enemy's attack and unleashing it whenever she feels necessary. And this is exactly what happened in this scene when she tried to hold back Thanos' gauntlet. She's not only stopping Thanos but also absorbing energy from all 6 Infinity Stones, and that's why the circuit breaks and it no longer glows on Thanos' hand. Instead it glows around her hand and arm, implying that the stones are now reacting to her movements rather than Thanos. It doesn't mean she could snap in that moment, because you still need to be wearing the gauntlet in its entirety. Also notice how she initially gets tossed around by Thanos until she grabs the gauntlet while being surrounded by energy. The longer she stays near the gauntlet, the more stronger she seems to get, and this is why she was able to withstand Thanos' headbutt without blinking an eye. In her solo movie, she storms through a bunch of ships after getting hit by an explosion. Prior to that, she seems to be more limited, but absorbing that explosion caused her to gain more power and she was easily able to destroy those ships. So this is the one detail that most people didn't notice from Avengers Endgame, that Captain Marvel actually was absorbing energy from all 6 Infinity Stones while trying to stop Thanos. But still, if you ask me what's the proof that Carol Danvers was absorbing energy from the gauntlet, I have one more reason to give you. Look what happened when Tony snatched all the Infinity Stones from Thanos. His gauntlet was still glowing, but the moment Tony pulled all the stones, it stopped surging immediately. It's because Tony broke the energy flow between the stones and Thanos. So it's clear that whenever the stones get separated from the gauntlet, it stops to glow. But Captain Marvel didn't pull any stone, and yet the glove wasn't glowing, proving that she managed to break the energy flow from reaching Thanos by simply absorbing it, despite not touching the stones physically. This is one of the main aspects of her powers in the comics, and to see this in Endgame in such a clever way is praiseworthy. Which brings me to my conclusion: is Captain Marvel the strongest Avenger? The simple answer is no. It's because she will struggle if there's nothing to absorb her power from. She can still use her photon blast, but that doesn't make her the strongest. For example, if she goes toe to toe with Thor, she will definitely give a strong fight by absorbing the energy from his lightning, but there's no way she's stopping Stormbreaker from a Thor in his prime. If the Infinity Gauntlet with all 6 Infinity Stones isn't strong enough to stop Stormbreaker, she isn't either. And that's why Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch, still remains the strongest Avenger, because her abilities and powers do not depend on her surroundings. Another aspect I noticed is that when Tony takes all the stones from Thanos, Thanos isn't worried about the absence of the current. It takes for him to snap to notice something's wrong. Now remember, this is Thanos from 2014. He was unprepared and so overconfident that he didn't even realize the gauntlet stopped glowing. Had it been Thanos from the current timeline, he would have noticed there's something wrong even before snapping. But because it's Thanos from 2014, he doesn't really know the differences between the two gauntlets, but if he knew, we would have gotten an entirely different ending. Nevertheless, this subtle detail from Avengers Endgame is truly amazing and makes me love this movie even more. And if you share the same opinion as me, then do give me a thumbs up.